All right, here we are with my 9 games. Shout out to the homie Erica for putting me onto this. Lots of the homies have been doing it, and I thought, oh, that would be a cool idea for a video. Then I almost didn't do it because I thought that was pick me behavior, but making YouTube videos in general is pick me behavior, so fuck it. The way that I'm doing this list, I am doing the 9 games that define or defined my taste. The 9 games that kind of influenced me to play a lot of the games that I play nowadays. And this is not reflective of like my top 25 or top 100. I would like to do a top 100 video sometime. This is not that time. What else? Disclaimer, was not a Nintendo kid growing up. Did not have much in the way of Nintendo consoles until the Wii came out. And even then, I played the Wii for like a summer. Played a lot of Wii Sports, and then I kind of like moved on because I just didn't have a lot of games for it and was not hip to all the fire that was on the Wii. Also, we're doing this live. So, one take. I don't care if I fuck up. I thought about it a little bit ahead of time, but for the most part, this is going to be off the cuff. I do have 2 honorable mentions that I came up with before this. 2 games that I feel like no doubt influenced my taste, but I felt like there were some things that kept them off this list. Number 1, I Spy Treasure Hunter, baby. I Spy Treasure Hunter. No, not the picture book. Talking about the fucking CD-ROM PC game, baby. This is where my PC gaming journey started, really. Fucking I Spy Treasure Hunter. Apparently I was around 5 years old when I played this. I think I got it from the library, and I would just like role play as like an adventurer looking for buried treasure. I was obsessed with finding treasure as a kid. Still haven't found it, unfortunately, but the dream is still alive. I used to also play one that was like more noir detective themed, and I feel like those 2 games were just like the start of my gaming journey. They were like some of the first games that I can remember like being addicted to. They didn't have a lasting impact on my taste necessarily, although I do still like looking for treasure and detective shit, but I just so vividly remember playing these games on my parents' shitty desktop that I was too young to litter with viruses from all the other browsing I would do at a later age. Second honorable mention, Resident Evil 2, the OG. So, the reason that this doesn't make the list is for 2 reasons. Number 1, I did not actually play much of this game. Back in the day, that is. A friend of mine on the block had it, and I remember going to his house and playing it, and when I was that age, probably not long after I played I Spy, I was so afraid of everything. Anything horror related just killed me. I could see a commercial on TV and be ruined. So, played Resident Evil 2, quickly decided it was not for me, and that I would never touch the series again. That proved to be incorrect. I was just a little fucking idiot back then. But I was so scared, swore off all scary games for a long time until probably middle school. And we'll get to when I picked up horror later, but this game planted a seed in the back of my mind that grew for probably 5 to 7 years. And once I realized how awesome scary stuff was, I never turned back. Horror is like one of my main genres of media to consume. I love everything horror, and we'll get into sort of the catalyst that pulled me back in later in this video. So, honorable mentions to I Spy and Resident Evil 2. First real game on the list. Now, aside from those two games, I have very vague memories of gaming before the PS2. So, PS1, N64, which, like I said before, I was not a Nintendo kid, did not have an N64, but my PS1, I did have an NES, but all I remember is Mario and Duck Hunt. I think I had a Sega Genesis, but I'm not sure. All I remember is playing Toy Story and Aladdin on something. And a lot of those memories are muddied, so I don't know if they are quite the right fit for this list. I'm starting with games that I still remember and that really still have a lasting impact on me. So, first game on the list, Splinter Cell. Alright. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, of course. There it is. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. One of the first games I remember playing. I can't remember if it was this game or Pandora Tomorrow or some other one, but I remember seeing a commercial for this game on the TV with some kids like singing some patriotic song in the background, but it was super eerie because it was like Sam Fisher crawling around with his like thermal vision on, and it just, I remember it creeping me out. I was still at that age where everything was scaring the shit out of me, and the trailer for this game fucking scared me for some reason. But I'm pretty sure my dad bought this. He just thought that it looked sick. And my dad, like, had some early interest in video games, but never played it because he was a blue-collar guy working too much. His loss, I ended up playing all the video games that he bought, and he never even got into gaming. So, I am his legacy. Splinter Cell... People forget that this is the OG third-person shooter that kind of pioneered the over-the-shoulder camera angle. From what I remember, this came out before RE4. A lot of people credit that game with sort of the modern third-person shooter mechanic pioneering, whatever you want to call it. But to my recollection, Splinter Cell was kind of the OG. Because of Splinter Cell, I later got into games like Metal Gear Solid. I was kind of late to the party on Metal Gear Solid. I didn't get to that until I got a 360 and played 2 and 3 HD remasters. But Splinter Cell was kind of like that game where I was like, oh my god, stealth games? I know some fucking people that don't like stealth games. Let me tell you, those guys are fucking stupid. Stealth games are goated. Splinter Cell being the OG, aside from Metal Gear Solid. But, yeah, this game really did get me into... It probably snowballed me into immersive sims later, snowballed me into Metal Gear Solid, which I am eternally grateful for. And man, this game... I just remember, like, playing in the shadows. You had the noise level monitor. So much, like, stuff that was really ahead of its time and isn't even, like, around anymore. Like, you look at, like, the modern Ghost Recon games and you're like, what the fuck is this, dude? Like, don't get me wrong. Wildlands is a cool game and I enjoyed playing it, but that ain't no fucking Tom Clancy game, alright? Anyway, I digress. We're already 10 minutes deep on this, so... let's move on. Alright. Second game. 007. Don't get it twisted. It's not fucking GoldenEye. 007 Nightfire. Alright? I meant to do Google images for each of these as I was talking about them. 007 Nightfire. This was my GoldenEye. This is easily one of the most influential games I've ever played in my life. This was my first jump into split screen multiplayer FPS games. Because of 007 Nightfire, I got into shit like Halo, Call of Duty, other 007 games. It also had like crazy driving missions, so like kind of reminds me of like weird stuff like, I don't know, Uncharted, or like a lot of adventure games that just kind of have mostly action but then random driving levels. So yeah, I remember playing this with the kids on the block. Shout out to Fifth Ave. This game was also the first sexy game I ever played. All right, there was a mechanic where you had like some kind of camera or something, and look, I was like, I don't know, a 7 or 8 year old boy. You bet your ass I was zooming in on fucking cleavage in this game. And I'm sorry to say it, but I appreciate this game allowing me, young Bob, to explore his sexuality in a safe place. So, 007 Nightfire, definitely big influence on little Bob. Next game up. It's got to be Jak 2, baby. A lot of these are going to be PS2. That was like my most formative console coming up. So, Jak 2, I was not allowed to play GTA as a kid. Okay? And that hurt. I remember kids sitting at the lunch table in elementary school talking about their adventures in GTA 3 and all that good stuff. And there's another game that filled that void for me that I'll talk about later, but Jak 2 was like the one that was like, oh, hold on. Open world games are kind of cool. I'm pretty sure this was mostly open world. It's been a long ass time since I've played it. But like, you could just take vehicles. I remember driving around, all the shooting. It was like, they took Jak and Daxter. They're like, what if we just gave this guy a fucking bike and a gun? So like, I don't know. There's not a lot for me to say about this game other than just like, it rips. I definitely need to replay it in the near future. But this is like the kind of game that got me into like games that I feel like just fucking rip, and doesn't matter if the writing is good or it's like as polished as another game. Like, I don't know. Metal Gear Rising comes to mind with its fuck ass story, but just absolutely like ripping gameplay and soundtrack. Like, and I do think this is kind of a game that led me into another game on this list. So we'll get to that shortly. But Jak 2, game number 3. Game number 4. Shadow of the Colossus. Now, I've never seen this box art, but this shit is hard. Shadow of the Colossus was one of those... It's definitely arguably the most influential on this list. Probably competing with 2 or 3 or 4 others. But Shadow of the Colossus was just like an eye-opener for me as a kid. This is all from the fucking remake, which is excellent. Rest in peace, Blue Point. Y'all shouldn't have been done like that. But Shadow of the Colossus was just such a monumental game for me. It was the first game that I can remember where the twist ending really got me. And if you haven't played Shadow of the Colossus, shame on you. I'm going to spoil that shit right fucking now. Basically, you go around the map killing these giant colossi in the hopes of reviving this princess. And you get to the end of the game, that shit does not happen. Instead, you just turn into a fucking colossus. And it's been a while since I played it, but I seem to remember there's like some weird guys that come out at the end, and I don't remember. I think you might fuck them up, but anyway. Crazy twist ending. Super, like, when I saw the like clip of this, I think on like G4 or some shit, I was just like, oh, it's like Zelda. And then I played it, and it's like the only combat in the game is with these giant creatures that you have to kind of find your way to the top of and just impale them on top of the fucking head, which is so metal and so dope. But Shadow of the Colossus, just absolute art as a game, and something that left a lasting impression on me. This was kind of like the start of my love for like artsier games, I think. And I was a young guy when I played this, but it definitely left an impression. I was still into dumb shit, but I'm still into dumb shit. But when I think about like what was that first game that really like touched my fucking heart, this is one of them for sure. Next game. This is where Jak 2 eventually led me. Bully by Rockstar Games, baby. So like I said, I was there at the lunch table making shit up about playing GTA. Literally lying through my fucking teeth. And like we're all just dumbass kids. Half of them are probably lying anyway because their dumbass parents probably didn't let them play. But then Bully came out, and I was like, yo, Rockstar put one out for me, dog. Bully is such an interesting game. There's so much to it. There's a decent coming-of-age story of a troubled kid who kind of finds his way in this troubled school that is basically corrupt from top to bottom. The gameplay is just super fun and silly. The world that it gives you to explore has so much character. All of the adults are dickheads in the game, which is like, as someone who had like a bit of a little shit childhood, is like how my twisted perception of adults was. I was just like, why are they all fucking hating on my hustle? But meanwhile, I just like egged somebody's fucking house. Like, but anyway, Bully felt like the open world GTA Lite for me. And looking back on it, it's a lot more akin to like a Yakuza game where you're just running around town beating the fuck out of people with random objects and doing all these crazy mini games, doing all of these quests. And the only difference is in Yakuza, the story can get like super serious, and that doesn't really happen in Bully. It always kind of stays pretty silly. But man, I remember like the soundtrack for this game hitting when you go on a date with this chick, and just like my fucking, I don't know, at this point, maybe 10-year-old ass being like, God damn. But anyway, Bully easily led me to other Rockstar games, led me to the Yakuza games, stuff like that. Bully, an absolute OG. Game number 6. So we have officially graduated from the PS2 to another game that I did not own. Let me scroll down here because I just realized the fucking OBS window is cutting my shit off. Next game. I also played at a friend's house. I did not have a PC that could run it, but he did. Shout out to John. Slender, the 8 motherfucking pages. I don't give a shit about this game anymore, truthfully. I would not play it again. But I cannot deny the insane influence that Slender, the 8 pages has had on my modern gaming diet. Slender, the 8 pages was probably the first horror game that I picked up after Resident Evil 2 and maybe dabbling with Resident Evil 4. I don't count Resident Evil 5 because I grabbed Resident Evil 5 after that. That game did not scare me one bit. But it did get me back into Resident Evil, and for that reason, it probably should be on this list. Honorable mention, Resident Evil 5. That game should be on here. Anyway. Slender the Eight Pages is what really pulled me back into scary games. And that is one of, like, the main genres that I fuck with today. I remember playing this game, you know, because all the fucking YouTubers were playing it. And then we rolled from this into Amnesia. And from there, the rest is history. First person, defenseless, scary games, they still hit for me. Horror games in general, probably my favorite genre of games. This led me back to this genre. And if it wasn't for this, I probably wouldn't have ever played... Well, alright. Let me not be too hyperbolic. Like, I probably would have found horror games again some other way. But this was the catalyst that got me back to games like Silent Hill, the actually scary Resident Evil games, fucking Alan Wake 2, shit like that. Fuck, there's like 5 more games that I want to put on this list. So you know what? I'll finish the 9, and then I got a few more. So next one is Resident Evil 5. That was not in my original plan for this video, so it's not going to go on the actual thing. But Resident Evil 5 pulled me back into the Resident Evil series specifically. Before, you know, Slender the Eight Pages came out, if I remember correctly. I have such a fond memory of this game because it was one of the only video games, if I remember correctly, that my parents ever helped me buy once I hit middle school. After I hit middle school, my dad was like, hey, if you want a video game, you gotta come like on the truck with me and fucking work for it. So I actually did do that for this game, but I was a couple bucks short, and I remember my dad taking me to FYE and being like, you know what, I'll cover the rest. And I later found out it was because there was a mail-in rebate on this game, bro. Back when mail-in rebates were still a fucking thing. Like, what? This is crazy. This is so crazy. I'm not even gonna comment. Sheva, Chris, one of the best duos in Resident Evil history. Probably the best co-op game in Resident Evil history. Not that it's competing with that many, but Resident Evil 5 is such an overhated game. I think that the temperature on this game has turned over the years, but this game pulled me back into Resident Evil. I didn't play Resident Evil 6, but I think I've played almost every Resident Evil entry since then. At least the mainline ones. Which, I mean, there hasn't been that many, I guess, but I digress. Resident Evil 5 really just, like, kind of showed me that even games that are super zany maybe aren't super true to the roots of the franchise, maybe are not enjoyed by everyone, could still be absolute bangers in your own mind. And I think that time has sort of proven that for Resident Evil 5. Well, this is cool. Anywho, Resident Evil 5 was not part of the original script here, so I'm not going to put it on the list, but just know it is there in my heart. 9 is the new, or excuse me, 13 is the new 9. Next game on the list, which I am just absolutely ashamed. You know what? Slender the Eight Pages, this is my video. I could do whatever the fuck I want, alright? So why don't you just chill out. Slender the Eight Pages, another honorable mention, okay? That game had a You know what? Hold on. We might need to make some edits here. Let's see. I absolutely adore Jak 2. It is in my top 25 of all time. But between Jak 2 and Bully, they're the two open world games that are on the list right now. I think Bully just had the more profound impact. I do. As far as long-term taste in games. Jak 2, easily in my top 25. I don't think Bully actually is, but the impact of Bully has to be respected, and so does the impact of Slender the Eight Pages. But I would not be Bob if Alan Wake wasn't on the list, baby. Alan Wake could turn me. Alan Wake is one of my most fond gaming memories and has pulled me into probably tied for, if not my favorite, gaming narrative universe ever. Let me tell you about Alan Wake. It was a summer day, maybe in 2011, maybe 2012, maybe even 2010, but I don't think it was the year the game came out. I had an Xbox gift card on my shit, and I had just been kind of holding on to it, waiting for something to pique my interest. And whoa, Alan Wake 2 was on sale for oh my god, I'm so Alan Wake 2 pilled. Alan Wake was on sale for maybe $20, something like that, $25. And I was like, oh man, I had never heard of it. I had no idea what this was. I had never even played a Remedy game, if I remember correctly. I just looked at the little pictures that were on the Xbox Live store and was just like, that looks pretty cool. So I downloaded that shit at like 11 a.m. I walked myself to Wawa because it was, mid-2000s. The internet wasn't the best. Came back. Game was almost done. Waited a little bit longer. And jumped in. And this game just took over that entire, 2 to 3 day span when I discovered it. I was so, enamored with how weird it was, how unique it was. At that time, the gameplay was super interesting. I still argue the gameplay is decent by modern standards, but it is very repetitive. At that time, didn't fucking matter. The whole just David Lynch Twin Peaks aura that this game had was just I didn't know it until I played this game, but it was exactly my taste. And truthfully, I played this probably after Slender. I can't remember anymore. But this game probably pulled me into games like Silent Hill and stuff like that just as much as the Slender the Eight Pages did. And from here, boy oh boy, the Remedy universe with Control and the homages to Quantum Break and the soft incorporation into Max Payne and Alan Wake 2 and the upcoming Control Resonant. I mean, it's just such an interesting world that they created. Shout out to Barry Wheeler. I cosplayed him at MagFest. It does get pretty moving, in my opinion, with the true ending of Alan Wake 2. And there's just so much going on here. I was so fatigued on connected universes at the time that Alan Wake 2 came out. And well, really at the time that Control came out, and those games just, they really showed the promise of that sort of narrative design if you actually give a fuck and are not just trying to make bread, So Alan Wake, I could talk about this game for hours. Maybe I will someday, but undoubtedly one of my favorite games of all time and one of the biggest influences on my gaming life. I fucked up the order here. Alan Wake should probably be there because if you know me, you know BioShock is baby. it's not really a hot take. BioShock is one of the best games ever. And was probably, it was sort of like that second moment that I can remember clearly after Shadow of the Colossus when I played the game. And I was like, yeah, like corny as fuck to say now, but at that time I was like, dude, video games are fucking hurt, and like there's so much going on with these things. Like BioShock was just like every artistic medium just like fucking like perfect. Like the visual design, the sound of all the guns, like the music, the fucking like the writing of the story, the themes in the background, like man, the twist that's like, what is it, like 3/4 of the way through the game? It's not really at the end. But BioShock was just like such a banger. And I remember playing it back in the day. I think I rented it from Blockbuster. I think they were still around. And I just remember being like, man, video games. This was the game that convinced me that video games were art. And BioShock Infinite was the game that convinced me that someday I really want to make a game. Because BioShock Infinite hit me almost as hard at the time that it came out. But the OG, it's got more of that horror tone that I love. And it's just like so brilliant and unique. And not an immersive sim, but this is another one that definitely snowballed me into immersive sims. Because I think my first immersive sim was Dishonored. Take a shot every time he says immersive sim. And I love that genre. And I remember seeing the trailer for Dishonored and be like, whoa, it's like, dude, it's like BioShock, but you don't have powers. And then come to realize BioShock is like a watered down version of a spin-off of another immersive sim. Shout out to System Shock. So, yeah. Anyway, BioShock, crazy influential. Just left its mark on me. Like few other things in my entire life ever have. Alright, we're back on track, timeline-wise. Next game. Now, I'm not just doing this because everybody else did it. And by everybody else, I mean 2 other homies. Dark Souls 2. I missed Dark Souls 1. I thought that Dark Souls and Darksiders were the same thing for a long time, and I was like, I don't really give a fuck about Darksiders. The homie grabbed Dark Souls 2, and I'm like, what the fuck is he playing Darksiders 2 for? Pull up to the crib. He sets me up. I'm doing my first run. And I just remember trying to get those fucking turtle guys to break the wall so that I could get the shortcut to the bonfire. I'm pretty sure they were like throwing explosive barrels or whatever. And I was just dying constantly. And then you get to the pursuer and he just fucks you relentlessly. And it was the first time in a very long time with a video game where I was like, this is insurmountable. I will never do this. A couple years later, well, first of all, I eventually beat that bitch's ass. And then later on, I don't think I finished Dark Souls 2, but I played a good bit of it and I knew that I loved it. A couple years later, maybe a year or two later, a little game called Bloodborne rolls around. And that was it. So Dark Souls 2 rolled me into Bloodborne. That was a fucking wrap. I'm a FromSoft pervert now. Say what you want. But if loving the FromSoft games is wrong, I don't want to be right. I don't have much more to say about it at this time. Last game on the list, and by far the most recent game that I have played, and definitely one of the most influential. Divinity Original Sin 2. just like an absolutely perfect gaming experience, especially at the time that it hit. Me and the homie John played this during COVID, and we just no life that shit for 2-3 weeks, and it just transcended me as a gamer. I've always been an RPG fan. I always liked Western RPGs, like, I liked all of the Bethesda games and shit like that. But when I played Divinity Original Sin 2 and came to the realization that turn-based combat is actually pretty cool, that just, like, opened up a whole new world for me. Holy fuck, I didn't show the pictures for Dark Souls 2. Let me just rectify that really quick. There's Royal Rat Authority. That's all you need to know about Dark Souls 2. Tells you everything you need to know in one boss. Divinity Original Sin 2. Because of this game, the entirety of my JRPG, history was built on this game, which I am super late to. Still catching up. Any turn-based video game, really, period, my jumping into those games, I credit Divinity Original Sin 2 for. I'm very close to finishing Expedition 33. If I didn't play Divinity Original Sin 2, there is a chance my dumbass does not touch that game. There's a chance. Final Fantasy VII, I played the remake, was like, wow, this is awesome. Played Divinity 2, was like, whoa, let me go play the OG. The OG is the shit. There's a reason that game gets sucked off the way it does. So, not only is Divinity Original Sin 2, like, easily, like, if I absolutely had to pick, probably a top 5 game of all time, but it just, like, blew the fucking doors off of games that I look at now, because turn-based combat, turns out all those people were not full of shit all that time. So, those are my 9+ games that defined my taste over the years. To recap, Splinter Cell, stealth action masterpiece that got me into shit like Metal Gear, future Splinter Cells, probably played a part in my love for, games like Dishonored and shit down the line. Who the fuck is calling me right now? Whoa, I'm getting ahead of myself. I Spy. Can't forget I Spy. Just absolutely role-playing while I was playing I Spy. Don't even know what the influence was there, but it feels important to me. Resident Evil 2 scared the living shit out of me, but really, like, planted a seed in my brain that would be revisited later. Shadow, oh my god. I cannot read shit in order. 007 Nightfire, Cleavage, Guns, Split Screen, Womanizer James Bond, not okay, but when I was 8 years old, that was kind of cool. Shadow of the Colossus. What the fuck happened at the end of that game? Art, beautiful. Still have not played The Last Guardian, I am so sorry. Bully, open world, beating people up, goofy ass tone, excellent music. Not Cleavage, but I thought this game was kind of hot when I was a kid. You got to kiss girls. You could kiss dudes too. Beautiful game. Slender the 8 Pages. Scared the fuck out of me. Pulled me back into horror games. BioShock. Nothing to be said there. One of the few games that comes as close as possible to being a perfect video game. 10s across the board in every category. Alan Wake. Fuck. Dark Souls 2 rolled me into FromSoft. Absolute hilarity with the jank of this game. Making the Dragon Rider fall off the fucking side of a cliff. That is so funny. And also, really does earnestly try to build on Dark Souls. People don't talk about that enough. This game really did try to build on the foundation of Dark Souls. It did not quite have the interconnected map that everybody likes to just bust over, which, by the way, that's very cool. Not trying to discount that. But you start in these like shitty little woods as this shitty little guy, and you work your way all the way up to Castle Drangleic, fighting these like godlike creatures. That shit is awesome. Divinity Original Sin 2. Incredible experience. Super intimate. Turned me on to turn-based games. Felt really special getting to play through that with the homie. We each got to have some extracurricular time with our respective companions. Just amazing game. Amazing games. Forgot to mention the other honorable mentions there. Jak 2. Resident Evil 5. And I'm sure there's others. But I've been talking for 40 fucking minutes straight. I feel like people are going to watch this video and think that there is absolutely something wrong with me, and you are absolutely right. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Alright.